On August 1st, 2025, Dr. Lauren Seamanchic had no idea that driving home from work would be the last thing she ever did. What would make a decorated state trooper, someone sworn to protect and serve, commit an act so brutal that it would shake the very foundations of law enforcement in New Jersey? This is the story of Lauren Seamanchic, a 33-year-old veterinarian who loved nothing more than sitting on clinic floors accepting face kisses from grateful dogs. Lauren had always dreamed of being a veterinarian since childhood, and by the summer of 2025, she was living that dream at Long Valley Animal Hospital. Her colleagues described her as having a heart full of love and empathy, one of those rare souls who genuinely made the world better just by being in it. Memorial Day weekend 2025 should have been just another Jersey Shore celebration, but for Lauren, it became the beginning of what should have been a beautiful love story. At a Stone Pony summer stage concert, she met Tyler Webb, a 29-year-old mechanic and volunteer firefighter from Forked River. Tyler wasn't just any mechanic, he was Berkeley Township's mechanic, the guy who made sure every patrol car was safe and ready. His sister Angela later said that Tyler lit up whenever he even talked about Lauren. The couple had been building something special over those warm summer months. They were still in that magical phase of introducing each other to their circles of friends and family. Lauren was so sweet and fun, Angela remembered, and you could see the happiness radiating from both of them in every photo. But Lauren had been feeling watched lately. What she didn't know was that someone had been planning this for months. Before we continue with the rest of this story, can I ask you for a quick favor? Please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. It's the best way to make sure you never miss our next gripping true crime release. Your support means the world and helps us keep uncovering stories just like this one. To understand how this nightmare began, we need to go back to early 2024. Lauren was using a wheelchair after an accident when she first met Ricardo Jorge Santos, a New Jersey State Police lieutenant. Santos was everything you'd want in a crisis: helpful, attentive, willing to do everything for someone he cared about. Lauren's sister Deanna initially thought it was so beautiful and so helpful. He was her knight in shining armor, Deanna recalled, and I think he really liked being able to do that. Santos wasn't just any trooper. He served on Governor Phil Murphy's security detail, part of the executive protection unit that guards the state's highest-ranking officials. This was a man with access, with power, with the kind of clearance that meant he was trusted with the safety of New Jersey's most important people. For about 6 months, Lauren and Santos dated, but something changed when Lauren got better and returned to work full-time. The dynamic shifted. Santos was no longer her main source of attention, no longer the indispensable knight. That's when the fight started. Santos would accuse Lauren of cheating. He would read her private diary. The helpful, caring man had become someone else entirely. Someone controlling. Someone frightening. By September 2024, Lauren had had enough. She ended the relationship. But what police found next would change everything.
You might think you'd notice if someone was watching you, but Ricardo Santos was a professional. He knew how to stay hidden, how to gather information, how to remain invisible while never really leaving someone alone. After Lauren broke up with him in September, Santos began what can only be described as a campaign of psychological terror. He would call her repeatedly from restricted numbers after she blocked his personal phone. He would show up at her workplace. When she was at work, he would break into her home. Lauren's sister Deanna was living in Colorado, helpless to protect someone she loved. "I made her get cameras and put a lock on her door," she said. "There was only so much I could do. This was my biggest nightmare." The harassment escalated quickly. Santos keyed Lauren's car while she was at work. He poured water into her gas tank. Most disturbing of all, he planted recording devices in her home, listening to her private conversations, monitoring her every move. He had ways of finding out information of things Lauren was doing or people she was talking to, Deanna explained. "We still don't know how he did it." By October 2024, just 1 month after their breakup, Lauren was terrified. In text messages that would later become evidence, she told Santos directly, "I feel threatened. I'm a single small female who recently had water in her gas tank, a recording device in my room, and now this." She was scared and she told him so. "If you continue to either reach out to me or invade my privacy in any way, I will be getting a restraining order." Another text was even more direct. "I do not feel safe continuing to speak to you. That is incredibly unsettling." But Lauren's pleas fell on deaf ears. Santos continued his reign of terror, and Lauren was forced to install cameras in both her home and her car, a decision that would ultimately provide crucial evidence of her final moments. However, the killer made one crucial mistake. He underestimated how much evidence those cameras would capture.
In May 2025, Lauren did what any reasonable person would do. She went to the Franklin Township Police Department for help. Her car had been keyed, and she suspected Santos. She filed a police report, and the department even contacted Santos, telling him he was suspected of vandalism. But when Lauren went to the station in person to speak with police, she was told no one was available. They gave her a phone number to call. She left a message about fearing for her life. No one ever called her back. The police department failed her, Deanna would later say. She said there were no officers in there to speak with her, so they gave her a phone number to call. She said she left a voicemail and was waiting to hear back. This wasn't just any stalker. This was a fellow law enforcement officer, someone who understood the system from the inside. Lauren specifically mentioned that Santos was a cop, which should have elevated the urgency of her case. Instead, it seemed to make authorities less likely to take action. And especially in mentioning he is a cop, Deanna said. That should be enough to, if anything, go up and down the street a little more often. But instead, they told her there's nobody here that can help you. Lauren tried to get restraining orders. Multiple agencies were contacted. Nobody called her back, said Lauren's mother, Janine Semanchik. A lot of agencies failed her. After Lauren contacted police, Santos went quiet for a while, but Deanna was still concerned for her sister's safety. "I told my family that I think she's in trouble and she needs to be more vigilant about her surroundings," she said. Just when investigators thought they understood the scope of the harassment, new evidence would reveal the true extent of Santos's obsession. By the summer of 2025, Lauren was trying to move on with her life. She had met Tyler Webb at that Memorial Day concert, and for the first time in months, she was genuinely happy. Tyler was everything Santos wasn't: stable, kind, genuinely caring without the need to control. Tyler worked as a mechanic for Berkeley Township, maintaining the police fleet. He was beloved by the officers whose lives depended on his work. Tyler wasn't just the township mechanic. He was our mechanic,
the Berkeley Township PBA later wrote. He took pride in making sure our patrol vehicles were safe, reliable, and ready for anything. Tyler was also a volunteer firefighter with the Pine-Walled Pioneer Fire Company, where he had served as chief engineer, lieutenant, and trustee. This was a man who had dedicated his life to helping others, someone who ran toward danger to save lives. Lauren and Tyler had been together for just a few months, but everyone could see they were building something real. They were still introducing each other to family and friends, still in that honeymoon phase where everything feels possible. But someone else was watching their happiness with growing rage. Santos had been monitoring Lauren's movements, tracking her relationships, learning about Tyler Webb. The recording devices he had planted weren't just about controlling Lauren, they were about gathering intelligence on her new life, her new love. What happened next would reveal the true depths of his obsession.
Friday, August 1st, 2025. Started like any other day for Lauren Seamanchic. She went to work at Long Valley Animal Hospital, caring for the animals she loved, completely unaware that she was being watched. What Lauren didn't know was that Ricardo Santos had been planning this day for months. The dash cam she had installed in her car, meant to protect her, would instead document her final moments with terrifying clarity. The timeline investigators later pieced together reads like a horror movie. 5:25 p.m. Lauren left work in Long Valley, Morris County. Security footage shows her walking to her car, just another veterinarian heading home after a long day of helping animals. But the same footage shows something else. A white 2008 Mercedes SUV leaving a parking space and beginning to follow her. 5:57 p.m. Lauren pulled into her driveway along Upper Kingtown Road in Franklin Township. The trailing SUV is still visible in the dashcam footage, maintaining its distance but never losing sight of its target. 6:11 p.m. This is when the footage becomes truly chilling. An individual, later identified as Santos, is seen surreptitiously walking through the wooded area along Lauren's driveway. He wasn't just following her home, he was positioning himself, hiding in the trees like a predator waiting for the perfect moment to strike. For over 30 minutes, Santos lurked in those woods, waiting. 6:45 p.m. Tyler Webb's vehicle arrives at the residence and parks next to Lauren's car. Tyler had no idea that someone was watching from the shadows, no idea that his arrival had just triggered a deadly sequence of events. Tyler was coming over for what should have been a normal evening with his new girlfriend. Maybe they planned to cook dinner together, watch a movie, or just talk about their day. Instead, Tyler was walking into a trap that had been set months in advance. 7:08 p.m. At exactly this time, Hunterdon County Communications received multiple 911 calls. Neighbors reported hearing gunshots and screaming in the area of Upper Kingtown Road. "We clearly heard shots," one neighbor later told reporters. "We knew pretty quickly it was a pistol, which is unusual, and then we heard screams." The neighbor continued, "We cannot deny that they were. She was terrified and sounded like she was running." These weren't just random gunshots. These were the sounds of Lauren Seamanchic fighting for her life, trying to escape from a man who had been terrorizing her for nearly a year. Franklin Township police responded to the 911 calls and patrolled the area, but they didn't find anything. They left. Lauren and Tyler were still alive at this point,
but they were running out of time.
Saturday, August 2nd, 12:22 p.m. Nearly 17 hours after neighbors first reported gunshots and screaming, Franklin Township police received another 911 call. This time, someone had found an unconscious woman at a home on Upper Kingtown Road. When officers arrived, they discovered a scene that would haunt investigators for years to come. Lauren Seamanchic and Tyler Webb were found dead from apparent gunshot wounds behind Lauren's house. Lauren had been shot in the back. She had been running when she died, trying to escape from the man she had once trusted, trying to reach safety that would never come. Tyler Webb, the volunteer firefighter who had spent his life running toward danger to save others, had been gunned down while trying to protect the woman he loved. Allison Semanchik, Lauren's sister, made the horrific discovery along with their father. She was running away. She was shot in the back, Deanna Semanchik later said. She gave so much of her life to other people and she deserved so much better. But the investigation was just beginning, and what police found next would expose a level of premeditation that shocked even experienced homicide detectives. Also on Saturday, August 2nd, about 30 miles away in Piscataway, New Jersey, park visitors at Johnson Park noticed something unusual. A white Mercedes SUV had been parked in the lot for hours, covered with a tarp and surrounded by police vehicles. Inside that SUV, investigators found the body of New Jersey State Police Lieutenant Ricardo Jorge Santos. He had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. A semi-automatic handgun was found in the vehicle. It was the same white Mercedes SUV that Lauren's dashcam had captured following her home from work the day before. Santos had driven from Lauren's house in Franklin Township to Johnson Park in Piscataway, a journey of about 30 miles, sometime after killing Lauren and Tyler. He had parked in the lot, perhaps looking out at the Raritan River, and made the decision to end his own life rather than face the consequences of what he had done. The Middlesex County Medical Examiner's Office would later confirm that Santos's death was a suicide. If records are accurate, Santos may have killed himself on his 45th birthday.
Ricardo George Santos was 45 years old, a decorated law enforcement officer with 15 years of experience in the New Jersey State Police. He had risen through the ranks from trooper to sergeant first class, and finally to lieutenant in 2024. This wasn't some unstable rookie or disgraced former officer. Santos was entrusted with protecting the highest levels of New Jersey government. He had served on Governor Phil Murphy's security detail and was most recently assigned to the agency's Dignitary Protection Unit. When news of Santos's involvement broke, Governor Murphy's office released a statement. "We are shocked and devastated by this horrific tragedy." How does someone with that level of responsibility, that level of trust, that level of clearance become a killer? The answer lies in understanding how domestic abuse works, particularly when the abuser has specialized training and institutional protection. Santos knew how to stalk without being detected. He knew how investigations worked. He knew exactly how to terrorize someone while staying just within the bounds of what other officers might consider normal relationship drama. Most importantly, Santos knew that when Lauren went to police for help, she would be reporting on one of their own. The thin blue line that's supposed to protect citizens becomes a wall that shields abusers when the abuser wears a badge.
In the aftermath of the murders, the scope of institutional failure began to emerge. It wasn't just that Lauren couldn't get help. It was that multiple agencies actively failed to protect her. On Thursday, August 8, 2025, the Hunterdon County Prosecutor's Office announced something unprecedented. They were taking over the entire Franklin Township Police Department due to serious concerns about the FTPD's operations and effectiveness. Police Chief Timothy Snyder and Sergeant Kevin Bolaro were placed on administrative leave. The prosecutor's office would supervise day-to-day operations until further notice. This wasn't just about one botched case. This was about a pattern of failures that had created an environment where a domestic abuser could operate with impunity, even after his victim explicitly sought help from law enforcement. Lauren's mother, Janine Semanchik, called it dereliction of duty at the utmost level. The investigation revealed that on the night of the murders, neighbors had called 911 reporting gunshots and screaming after 7 p.m. Franklin Township Police responded to the area but left without conducting a thorough search. Lauren and Tyler might still have been alive at that point. It wasn't until nearly 17 hours later that police actually discovered the bodies, and only after someone else called to report finding an unconscious woman. 17 hours. Lauren and Tyler lay dead for 17 hours while their families worried, while Tyler's fire company wondered why he hadn't shown up, while Lauren's colleagues at the animal hospital waited for her to come to work.
Dr. Lauren Seamanchic was more than just a statistic in a domestic violence case. She was a woman who had turned her childhood dream of helping animals into a career that touched hundreds of lives. Not only was Lauren a phenomenal veterinarian, said a practice manager at Long Valley Animal Hospital, she was one of the kindest souls you could ever encounter and a friend to us all. Pet owners remembered how Lauren would sit on the floor of the examination room, accepting face kisses from nervous dogs, making both pets and their families feel comfortable during stressful visits. "She saved our dog's life," said pet owner Kelly Brewster, "so it's just really sad." A memorial of flowers, photos, and plush animals grew outside the animal hospital where Lauren had worked. Colleagues and clients contributed to a GoFundMe campaign that raised over $42,000, money that Lauren's family decided would go toward a charity benefiting older pets, a final act of service in Lauren's memory. Tyler Webb was remembered as someone who found true happiness in just being with people. His obituary noted that he was always helping anyone in need, and through his kindness he had touched countless lives and brought many groups of strangers together to become friends. As a mechanic for Berkeley Township, Tyler took pride in maintaining the vehicles that kept officers safe. As a volunteer firefighter, he had served in leadership roles and dedicated countless hours to protecting his community. The Berkeley Township PBA wrote, "Tyler was an incredible mechanic, but an even better friend. His loss is deeply felt throughout the department, the township, and everyone fortunate enough to know him." A meal train for Tyler's family raised over $13,000 in just a few days, a testament to how many lives he had touched through his service and kindness.
Lauren Seamanchic's murder wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a broader pattern of domestic violence that kills approximately 3 women every day in the United States. What made this case particularly tragic was how many warning signs were ignored, how many opportunities for intervention were missed. The harassment had been going on for nearly a year. Lauren had evidence, text messages, police reports, surveillance footage.
She had explicitly told authorities she feared for her life. She had named her abuser, explained his position in law enforcement, and begged for help. Yet the system failed her at every level. Franklin Township police didn't follow up on her report. No one returned her calls. When neighbors reported gunshots and screaming, officers didn't conduct a thorough search. When Lauren and Tyler were found dead, it took 17 hours to discover their bodies. Hunterdon County prosecutor Renee Robeson called the deaths a senseless and devastating loss and urged anyone experiencing threats, harassment, or abuse to seek help. Resources are available, Robeson said, and there is strength in reaching out. But Lauren did reach out. She sought help from multiple agencies. She documented the abuse, reported the crimes, and explicitly stated she felt threatened. The resources existed, the laws existed, the evidence existed. What didn't exist was a system willing to take domestic violence seriously when the abuser wore a badge.
As of this writing, the investigation into both the murders and the institutional failures that preceded them continues. The Hunterdon County Prosecutor's Office is examining every aspect of how Lauren's case was handled, from the initial reports of harassment to the response on the night of the murders. Questions remain about Santos's access to Lauren's personal information, his ability to track her movements, and whether his position in law enforcement gave him advantages in avoiding detection. There are also questions about whether Santos was involved in other incidents of domestic violence or harassment that haven't come to light. The New York Post reported that Santos was implicated in a lawsuit for overusing the state police overtime system, though he was never charged with wrongdoing. The Office of the Attorney General, which oversees the state police, released a statement saying they were devastated by the tragedies that occurred and would await the full results of the investigation before commenting further. But for Lauren's family, no investigation can bring back their daughter and sister. No reform can undo the terror she experienced in her final months of life.
Lauren's sister, Deanna, has become a voice for accountability in the wake of the tragedy. She wants to ensure that other victims don't face the same indifference Lauren encountered when she sought help. I just want there to be some accountability for how they failed her, for how the police department failed her, Deanna said. The family continues to seek answers about why Lauren's reports were ignored, why no one followed up on her calls for help, why the system that should have protected her instead failed her so completely. He needs to have accountability. He needs to be taken because he took the cowardly way out by taking his own life, Deanna said of Santos. But accountability is complicated when the perpetrator is dead. There will be no trial, no opportunity for a jury to hear evidence, no formal finding of guilt. Santos took that possibility away when he killed himself in his Mercedes SUV. What remains is the institutional accountability, ensuring that the agencies that failed Lauren face consequences and implement changes to prevent future tragedies. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. Santos's behavior escalated from helpful to controlling to dangerous, in a pattern that domestic violence experts recognize all too well. The relationship began during Lauren's vulnerable period, when she was using a wheelchair and needed help. Santos positioned himself as indispensable, creating a dynamic where Lauren became dependent on him. When Lauren recovered and no longer needed his constant assistance, Santos couldn't accept the change. He began fights, accused her of cheating, and violated her privacy by reading her diary. After the breakup, the harassment escalated, repeated calls from blocked numbers, showing up at her workplace, breaking into her home, installing recording devices, vandalizing her property.
Lauren recognized the danger. She blocked his numbers, installed security cameras, and sought help from law enforcement. She explicitly stated she felt threatened and feared for her safety. Every box on the domestic violence escalation checklist was marked, yet Lauren couldn't get the protection she needed. The person responsible was someone nobody suspected, until it was too late.
The murders of Lauren Seamanchic and Tyler Webb exposed fundamental flaws in how law enforcement handles domestic violence cases, particularly when the abuser is a fellow officer. Studies show that domestic violence rates among law enforcement families are significantly higher than in the general population. Officers who abuse their partners often use their position, training, and connections to evade consequences and continue their abuse. When victims try to report officer-involved domestic violence, they often face skepticism, minimization, and institutional protection of the abuser. The same brotherhood that's supposed to protect officers from external threats can become a shield that protects abusive officers from accountability. Lauren Seamanchic experienced this firsthand. Despite having evidence, despite filing reports, despite explicitly naming her abuser as a law enforcement officer, she couldn't get help. The takeover of the Franklin Township Police Department by the prosecutor's office represents an acknowledgement that systemic reform is needed. But reform takes time, and for Lauren and Tyler, time ran out.
In true crime, we often look for the moment when everything could have been different. The missed opportunity, the overlooked clue, the decision that might have saved lives. In this case, there were dozens of such moments. If Franklin Township Police had returned Lauren's calls, if they had taken her reports more seriously because Santos was a fellow officer, not less seriously, if they had conducted a thorough search when neighbors reported gunshots and screaming, if any one of the multiple agencies Lauren contacted had treated her case with the urgency it deserved, Tyler Webb might still be maintaining police vehicles and fighting fires. Lauren Seamanchic might still be sitting on clinic floors, accepting face kisses from grateful dogs. Their families might still be looking forward to holidays together, to watching their relationship grow, to celebrating milestones and anniversaries. Instead, two young people who dedicated their lives to helping others were gunned down by a man who was supposed to protect and serve.
To this day, residents of Franklin Township still lock their doors a little tighter. Pet owners driving to Long Valley Animal Hospital still think of Dr. Lauren Seamanchic when they pull into the parking lot. Firefighters across New Jersey still honor Tyler Webb's memory when they respond to calls. The memorial outside the animal hospital has been replaced by a plaque, but the impact of Lauren's work and the tragedy of her death continues to ripple through the community. Lauren's family has established a charity in her memory to benefit older pets, ensuring that her compassion for animals continues even after her death. Tyler's Fire Company dedicated their 2025 season to his memory, carrying his badge number on their helmets as they continued the work he loved. But perhaps the most important legacy of their deaths will be the reforms that prevent future tragedies. The takedown of Franklin Township Police, the investigation into institutional failures, and the increased scrutiny of how domestic violence cases involving law enforcement are handled all represent steps toward a system that might actually protect future victims. Lauren Seamanchic should be alive today, treating sick animals and building a life with Tyler Webb. Tyler Webb should be alive today, maintaining police vehicles and serving his community as a volunteer firefighter. They're not alive because a system meant to protect them failed, and because a man entrusted with public safety became their killer. Their story serves as both a tragedy and a warning. Domestic violence can escalate to murder. Institutional failures can have deadly consequences, and the badges meant to protect can sometimes shield the very people who do the most harm. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7 at 1-800-799-7233. Because in the end, the only way to honor Lauren Seamanchic and Tyler Webb is to ensure that no other family has to endure what theirs did, and that no other victim has to face what they faced in their final, terrifying moments.
If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like the video, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel for more gripping true crime stories. And most importantly, turn on the notification bell. That way, you'll be the first to know whenever we release a new case. Your support helps us keep bringing you these powerful stories, and turning on notifications ensures you never miss a single update.